Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. My name is Mazwe Majola. I'm still struggling with flu. I've been having this very, very terrible flu. Those who were here last week, you remember that I was not very, very feeling well. But a soldier is a soldier. I have to soldier on. Thank you so much for joining us. We've got load shedding again tonight. So indeed, our members will be affected. Many people would have loved to attend, will be having challenges. And I do expect people coming in and out, being kicked out at any time. Others will join us late, but we will start and we'll continue because that is who we are. We are leaders in leadership, and that's what we are. We've been doing this for a while now, since August 2020, in the midst of COVID-19, actually in the midst of level 5 of COVID. That's when we started meeting in this fashion. And we've been doing it, whether it's raining, whether it's cold, whether it's hot, whether there's load shedding or there's no load shedding. We took a decision that we'll always meet, because we've recognized that it's not about quantity, but it's about quality. And we are so humbled and so grateful of the quality of people who attend our platform. I can even see as people are joining in now, powerful people I respect a lot. And thank you so much for joining us. We've got a powerful speaker tonight. I'll be introducing her shortly. Welcome to our members, to our regulars, to those people who are with us almost every week, every Wednesdays. You come every Wednesday because you know that we are learning a lot from each other. We have been learning a lot. I'm saying this every Wednesday, that indeed we are learning a lot from each other. We are here as leaders, as scholars, as executives, to empower each other, to sharpen each other, because leadership, it's a journey. Leadership, it's not a destination. And we do that to develop ourselves, because if you are a leader and you stop developing yourself, you will be obsolete. I mean, hear from me. I've been in the game for many, many years. I've written books. I've taught leadership for different universities. I've mentored, coached many different executives and leaders. So I've been there, but still, I'm still a student. As you know, I always say that I'm a lifelong leadership student, because as I'm saying, that leadership is it's a journey. We learn all the time. I've been in leadership space for over 30 years now, but I'm still learning from you and from each other, because as I say, you want to be a leader, you must know that you learn until you go to the grave, but you stop learning and stop leading. As long as you want to lead, you must learn. That's the name of the game. A special welcome to those who are joining us for the first time. If you are here for the first time, thank you so much for joining us. At the moment, the majority, I see our members, I see our regulars, but if in any case there is anyone who's here for very first time, you are most welcome. And thank you so much for tuning in. Please do feel free and participate, join the discussion. This is a discussion. This is a conversation. We would like to hear from you, because we'd like to learn from you as well. So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. We will continue, and I will introduce our speaker. As I said, that we will not wait for others. We'll just start. We'll continue. I'm coming from that background. I'm coming from that church where where it doesn't wait for people to come. I know that other churches, they'll say, hey, let's wait another 5 minutes. Let's see, is there anyone who comes? From where I come from, where do we start? We start. And that's what makes people to be punctual, because they know that they will miss a lot, actually, because that first 5 minutes or 3 minutes, they will miss a lot. So anyone who would like to be late, that is what we apply here as well, that we start at 6 o'clock. And indeed, we start. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, we are discussing a very important topic: leadership for hybrid workplace. This is a very important topic, ladies and gentlemen, that we'll be discussing. And I'm looking forward to learn not only from our esteemed speaker, but even from yourself as well, because it has been found that the great resignation that emerged from US, it was as a result of this, the dynamics and challenges of the hybrid in the workplace, which resulted from the COVID, where when things became to be normal, when people started to go to, many people didn't want to go back to work. So that is when others, they just resigned, others they started their own businesses, others they left, others. So it's so interesting. So even everywhere, even in our country, everywhere, because most of you, I know that you are executives for global companies, not only South Africa, whether it's in China, it's in Japan, US, Europe, anywhere. This is the most important topic that we're discussing tonight, that as things are easing out now, or as things are becoming normal now, we've been so used to work virtual. Do you still want to go back to those meetings personal, when you just, switch on your computer and then you attended a meeting, at which point that you have to rush to the office and be there 8 to 5? Or you prefer to be at home and work at home? While you're at home, your children are there, they want to play with you, because children are children. They just see the mother, they see the dad. For them, they don't know that you are working. They're so used that when you work, you'll go away in the morning and come back in the afternoon. Now you are there the whole day, they want to play with you. So these are dynamics that we're grappling with as leaders in our workplaces nowadays. So I'm so looking forward for this conversation, because it's very, very important. And our speaker tonight, my dear sister, and I'm so happy that she availed herself, a very busy person, and I'm so happy and I'm so grateful, Sis Philile, that you really availed yourself. Sis Philile is one of our regulars here. She really attends as much as she can, and I'm so happy that she came one time and then she just attended after that. Because as I'm saying that, it's a space where we all feel at home. We just come and sit and listen to other people. How wonderful it is where you just, as an executive, as a scholar, as an academic, we can just go, and just listen, because this is how we learn from each other. So, Sis Philile is a mother of 3. This is to Simphile, Sobuhle, and Abahle, and many children in her community. So it's not only her biological mother, but also many children in her community. She's married to my brother, my dear brother, Mkhize, and in her professional career, Dr. Philile Mkhize is an IT executive with over 20 years' experience in strategy, innovation, and IT delivery. She has diverse global experience in various IT and digital executive roles across banking, telecommunications, mining, and insurance sectors. Dr. Mkhize is the IT executive for or at Liberty Group, defining and driving the IT strategy for the group, including the adoption of new technologies. She's building the robotics, automation, data and cloud capabilities. She has deep understanding of digital data security and infrastructure strategies. She leads the IT board and regulatory stakeholder engagements. In her previous roles, she served as APSA Group IT Exco member and also Global Director of World-Class Systems for AECI Mining. Dr. Mkhize is passionate about inclusion and diversity. She co-founded CommuScore, an alternative credit scoring fintech startup. Her social entrepreneurial work with Stockfels has earned local and international recognition by SAB Foundation, Alpha Code, World Seed Stars, and etc. She is an alumna of the University of Johannesburg, of Gibbs and Henley Business School. She completed a Doctor of Business Administration from California University, that is in USA. And Dr. Philile Mkhize has participated in several executive leadership programs, including Global Women Leadership Program from Santa Clara in US. She is an advocate for women in leadership. In 2017, Dr. Mkhize was nominated for Netherlands Inspiring 50 Women in South Africa. She serves on IT Web or Brainstorm Wired for Women Board. She is the chairperson of Global Women Leaders of the World in South Africa. She is also a mentor and head judge for Technovision. That is a US-based organization teaching young children AI and entrepreneurial skills across the globe. Her leadership story is covered in the leadership book by a USA author that is Linda Alepen. The book is called Shifting Context, Leadership Springs from Within. That is my sister, Dr. Philile Mkhize, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Mkhize, thank you so much. We are so eager and excited from listening to you tonight. And thank you so much for availing yourself, as I've said earlier on. You know how we operate. You will address us, and then we will engage you after that. Those who are joining us for the first time, the speaker will engage us or will address us, and then we can engage the speaker via, you can raise your hand, or you can write your questions or comments via chat room. But we do encourage when you raise your hand because we want to hear you expressing yourself. So thank you so much, my sister Philile. Over to you, sis. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me clearly, Prof?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh,
absolutely.
awesome. Yeah, so thank you so much. And that was actually a mouthful. And good evening, everyone. I'm really, truly honored to be part of the conversation, particularly on a topic that has really nothing to do with technology, but more to do with leadership and hybrid working, which has presented a new leadership challenge for many of us. And I think, as Prof highlighted, the dynamics that we have experienced and continue to experience, this is a crucial conversation that needs to happen at leadership level. So please join the conversation. I think, as Prof mentioned, I also want to learn because I am a leader. I don't want to die not learning. So please use the chat. And as Prof mentioned, also raise your hand. Let's hear your voice. So in 2020, many leaders were really caught off guard and had to quickly decide on how the new workplace would typically look like, whether full remote or hybrid or even remain in the office as essential workers. And in some cases, some other companies had to close doors and wait for the world to open up. Technology really did play a crucial role in enabling the new way of how work was done, where work was done, as well as the type of work that needed to be done to keep our companies and some of our organizations afloat. However, there are some challenges that are faced by leaders when it comes to remote working. So like many leaders, I also had to find quick ways to get our colleagues to work from home. Others did not even have some of the mobile tools like the laptops, and we had to figure out some of the workable solutions to try and get everyone to be able to continue working. One of the challenges we had particularly was around the contact center in our organization, where the team was actually fully kitted to work from the office. And we had to find creative ways to enable all the teams to be able to work. And at some point, we actually were not sure how we will be able to meet some of our team's requirements. And if you remember, I think just before the first national lockdown, most people opted to leave Johannesburg to be closer to their families. I remember we had to deliver computers in deep rural areas, and access to electricity, access to data, access to connectivity became a constant challenge for us. And I think our various personal circumstances also enabled us, or in some cases even disabled how we worked. And I think you also have some of the stories where you've seen how the pandemic laid bare the existing inequalities at work, particularly around caregiving, around our living spaces, where we come from in terms of our background, and sometimes even age. And I'm sure you can share some of those stories that you've seen in your various organizations where there was clear inequality and clear exclusion that showed up during lockdown. And as leaders, as caregivers, mothers, it was challenging time to try and balance the needs of ourselves, the needs of our families. Some of us had young kids that we had to support in terms of school. Colleagues were basically going through quite a number of challenges in their personal lives. And our customers wanted us and needed us, and actually even expected us to show up as leaders. The reality is that leaders could continue even now to face very different and unique challenges when it comes to work, when it comes to the worker or the employee, as well as the workplace, and how we need to lead and drive new cultures that will keep our colleagues engaged in performing continues to be a conversation that we need to have. And yes, we've had many months to adapt. We've had many months to shape how and what our teams need to do to deliver on the products as well as the services that we deliver to our customers. However, as remote and hybrid work transition from what I would call a temporary pandemic era to a normal way of working, we are wondering how we need to be building these workplaces that will drive, one, the right culture, as well as deliver the value that our organization expects of us. We have the opportunity as leaders to really learn from each other on how we can build a better workplace. Some companies are driving full remote working. Everyone can work from home as they have been doing. Others are opting for hybrid working, depending on the number of days that employees are able to come back, whilst others are actually opting for a full office working, so going back to how things were. So the path to building this call it workplace better is actually not clear if I converse and engage with a number of people. And what is very clear is also that this path differs for each organization. it actually even differs for each team within the organization, because not all working arrangements work in the same way or work for everyone as an employee. Many companies last year and countries as well, including South Africa, accelerated the vaccination campaigns to get more and more people vaccinated so that we can return to what would be termed the new normal, or in my case, the new normal workplace. A work reimagined employee survey, which was conducted by EY last year, actually found what Prof. Majola mentioned, that 9 out of 10 employees actually want flexibility in where and when they work. And close to 54% of the employees were prepared to quit if they aren't offered that flexibility that they wanted. And on average, some employees highlighted that they expect to work at least 2 to 3 days a week remotely, or rather in the office as well. So seeing this coming through, we've actually been talking quite a lot around the great resignation, where the great people that have choices are actually leaving organizations for the organizations that are able to provide that flexibility. And I think if we were to also just look at another survey that was done by Statistica, where a number of respondents, actually just over 70%, where employees were saying they prefer the flexible remote working options, even post the pandemic. And many organizations, including my own, we've done quite a lot of internal surveys to try and solicit feedback from our colleagues. And also, I think it will be quite interesting to just understand from a South African or maybe even an African context on how our colleagues are actually thinking about the post-pandemic era workplace. So please feel free, as I mentioned, to post on the chat in terms of how your teams are responding to new ways of work, as well as the new definition of workplace. And with the return to the office, or rather, if in your case, it's hybrid working, there are many questions that businesses are asking in terms of how we move forward. And I think these are the questions that we as leaders need to be able to find some ways of answering. There is no really right or wrong answer. And I think it's always around how we continuously adapt, learn, and improve, and ensure that we're able to bring about cultures where our employees are able to thrive. So remote working offers remote commuting, call it reduced commuting time. I really prefer that. This morning, actually, I had to drive somewhere and I really didn't like the traffic in the morning. There is also, I think, the other benefits around the reduced carbon footprint, just as a result of less people driving, less people going overseas, and so on and so on. And on the other hand, if we look at the full office working, it does provide individuals a faster and easier way to access information, as well as to nurture some of those social learnings and idea sharing, as well as general collaboration on how we thrive as human beings. And if hybrid is done right, it does offer a number of benefits to individuals as well as organizations. However, our colleagues, our partners, service providers really need to be informed. They need to be empowered. They need to be trusted to make the decisions about how best to carry out their jobs. And I think what's also quite important is to understand what our clients or the people that we serve, what their expectations are. And for us to be able to achieve that, I would call it a win-win-win situation where you've got the individuals winning, managers winning, organization winning. That won't happen organically. And it won't happen by chance. It will take leadership. It will take us It will take us being able to clarify what's expected and being able to understand and communicate what we mean when we say hybrid working. So currently, hybrid working models really do mean different things to different people, to different organizations, and therefore leaders need to be clear about how they see hybrid working in their organization, as well as whether can individuals be able to work remotely. These are some of the questions that we need to be asking. So just as I think as leaders, there are, I would say, 6 things that I noted. One is around communication and being able to level the playing fields to be able to drive inclusive leadership. So people want transparency, people want fairness. They want to understand how hybrid work decisions are made and how managers will display that they are treating people fairly. And the right tools also need to be made available. And I think for leaders who just wish to simply return to business as usual, those again need to be very clearly communicated in terms of how decisions around future ways of working are being taken, and more importantly, why those decisions are taken. So that's one, communicate, as well as the level fields or playing fields need to drive the inclusive leadership. 2, it's about being mindful of the unintended team dynamics. I think Prof. Mazwe, you also mentioned that one of the biggest risks that we have as we try and emerge through this hybrid working model is the notion of us and them dynamic, where people that may be seen as, going to the office all the time are seen as committed. And maybe sometimes on the same token, they may be seen as underperforming and, need to be managed, call it on a day-to-day basis, whilst the guys that are working remotely may be seen as having some sort of preferential type treatment, or they may be seen as being able to work from home and being trusted to actually still continue delivering outstanding performance irrespective of where they work. So I think it's also quite important that as leaders, we are mindful of that unintended team dynamic. The third one is around being intentional on the new culture that you want to set for your organization. So moving to hybrid working is challenging because it requires some acceptance from leaders that the future will actually change from how it was in terms of culture, as well as it also creates an opportunity for us to review that we had a culture before the pandemic, and what type of culture do we now want to create? What are some of the aspects that we want to keep, and what are some of the aspects that will actually no longer serve us as the organization as we move into this newer way of working? I think the fourth part is being able to set very clear policies for organizations that are driven by policies and standards, and setting those goals in a collaborative manner. So ambiguity is usually a common issue in terms of hybrid. So all members need to understand the role that they play in terms of their responsibilities and what's expected from them to avoid confusion as well as disengagement. So if I decided it's hybrid work, I come in the office once a week, whilst the expectation is that I actually come in 3 times a week, already it creates confusion and disengagement. So very important that the policies as well as goals are set and they are clear and well communicated and understood. We've seen, I think, over the past 2 years, how important well-being of self as well as the other is so paramount. That is still going to continue. There is the whole notion of long COVID. And as we emerge from the pandemic, to effectively lead a hybrid team, we really need to be actively supporting ourselves in terms of well-being. We need to be supporting the teams that we lead. And I think what's also quite important is, I think as leaders, and most of us do this, is to treat each person as an individual. And let's make sure that each individual has a unique hybrid working plan, because everyone's different. And as a result, people bring unique sets of skills to the team. There isn't one approach that actually may work for everyone, but as long as it's understood, it's communicated, and that we continue to trust our colleagues to do their jobs and be able to build trust that the various teams is able to then move forward. I think one thing that I can just mention is, gone are those days where visibility equates to productivity or high performance. I mean, we've proven in many cases that you can actually be working from anywhere and still be able to deliver actually even outstanding type of performance. So just on final thoughts, this current work environment has brought about a number of questions that have left many companies, and particularly leaders, struggling to answer. It's up to us as leaders to find innovative solutions to make this hybrid working model work. And one of the other areas is that it's no longer, call it a newer or future way of working. The new normal has arrived, it's here, and it could be hybrid working. So for us as leaders to thrive, we must learn and continue to adapt and lead our hybrid teams to this new way of working, and also adopt and embrace the hybrid working model. And in that way, we should then be able to pay very close attention to our team members, as well as continue to find ways to address their very unique positions. And I think if done right, we should then be able as leaders to progress not only our teams, not only our organizations, not only our country, but the continent at large. And with that, I'm hoping this way of working will flourish. And I am going to pause right there, Prof. Majola, and take some of the questions, or maybe even learn from some of our colleagues.
Wow, thanks, Doc. Thank you very much, my sister. Powerful. Ladies and gentlemen, really, as Dr. Mkhize just said, this is the most important topic we've got to grapple with, we've got to discuss as leaders, because we are going to be confronted with these challenges in terms of flexibility. The key word there is agility, adaptability. You've got to adapt. Ambiguity and rigidity is the arch enemy of effective leadership. So in whatever it's happening, you've got to be able to know that agility is the most important. Yes, in 2019, you used to have your team members, 8 to 10, you used to all there, probably having those meetings on Mondays, or ExCo meetings on Tuesdays, or whatever that you are using as an organization. 2020, from April 2020 until now, things changed. And then how are you going to handle that? Because definitely we are going to suffer from that great resignation that has swept the America. Thank you so much, Prof. I see the first question there is from my brother there, Michael Tabanemak. You are one of us here, and I'll suggest that you express yourself, sir, and just ask your question. Thank you, Michael.
Okay, sorry, Prof. Majola. Thank you so much for allowing me to ask the question here. Thank you so much, Dr. Mkhize. I really appreciate your presence here. So the question that I want to ask is that, like, how do we ensure that, like deep, meaningful connections are maintained between colleagues in a hybrid model of working? Given the fact that we no longer have that, one-on-one, physical, personal, connectivity that we used to have in the past. So then how do we ensure that, like, those connections and those meaningful connections are maintained within colleagues? Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm going to, because as I say, there is really no right answer or wrong answer for that matter. We're all trying to see what works. How we are tackling, let's call it collaboration and deeper, meaningful conversations is so we drive quite a lot around agile delivery. So where we have to be talking about where we take our organization forward, we have as an organization decided that we will be able to bring people, to be together for such deep type ideation, as well as let's call it sharing of ideas in terms of where we're taking the organization. And we're hoping that we're also creating an environment that allows for such conversations to happen. I've seen in companies like Google, exactly more or less a similar type of model that they are following, where it's okay for people to carry on working from home. However, when it comes to idea generation, then the expectation is that people do have that face-to-face type engagement. Technology will always still provide, let's call it as an enabler, a way for deeper communication and deeper conversations to happen. However, we've seen that really as human beings, that face-to-face and very close type conversations are a little bit different to, how I am engaging with people online. So, and we will continue to work on that, because those are actually very important. For me as a leader, one of the challenges that I had when we started working from home was the body language and not being able to read how the people were actually feeling without the words being said. And it's a skill that I had to learn. However, now it's another skill that I now need to learn on how do I make sure that I have that deeper connection from a person-to-person point of view. I hope I've answered you, Mr. Tabane. Okay, great, thank you.
Well, thanks, Dr. Mkhize. That's a very important question that Michael asked, because yes, IT is there and it's so helpful, but we still need that relationship. You cannot cut corners. You are dealing with human beings. You are dealing with social beings. So you still need that heart-to-heart emotional things. So as much as online is helping us, but definitely there is that dynamic. Most of you know that I deal a lot with corporate programs. I lecture, I teach. Obviously now it's more online than face-to-face, and we do feel that I mean, when you teach online, when you engage with leaders, with executives, when you're talking online, or rather in person, it's engaging, you're asking, but when it's online, it's not the same.
Not the same.
So there is that.
Not the same.
Thank you. I see a hand there. We will deal with the others that is in the chat room. Let me take my brother there, Dr. Tumamangisa. Over to you, Doc.
Thank you, Prof. Majola, and thank you very much, Sis Philile. A wonderful conversation, of course. I have a question. With regards to the output as to whether there was a change at the output, that was or is expected, from employee who happen to work, remotely or hybrid. I am asking this, of course, being informed by the enablers, that you refer to. Part of the enablers, was collaboration, well-being, policies, communication, and transparency. Did all of this resulted into, the same amount of output, or, higher output or lesser output thereof on average? That's what I'm interested in. And secondly, I do want to know the role, that human resources or organizational effectiveness department, played, so that perhaps the same level of output through these enablers was attained, something to that effect. Thank you very much, Prof.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for the question. So just looking at the first one around output, what we've seen is, let's call it, during the working from home, the people that were somehow hiding within the system from a performance point of view, actually, that became very apparent. People were unable to be reached. They were unable to meet their targets. And I guess for us, what was quite important is also how then we were able to either adapt or adopt our policies and ensure that we are very clear around, let's call it, the KPIs, or how people are actually measured, so that we measure output as compared to being just in the office or being online. And I think that actually drove quite a lot in terms of output. So my view is that because there was also quite a number of very different type of dynamics, since a number of organizations were closing and shutting down, many people actually felt more privileged to have a job, and therefore gave in quite a lot of effort in ensuring that they help contribute in keeping the organization afloat. So that is just around the output. When it comes to hybrid, I think, excuse me, this now calls for, I actually say, I think full remote working is a little bit simpler. Hybrid is more complex. And why is that? Because now you have to be trying to converge the two, meaning how you manage people working from home and people working from the office for the same output, which is basically what we deliver. The question around human capital, I am actually quite blessed, and I'm happy to say that, to work for an organization that is so people-oriented. So as we started moving or thinking about the model that we would typically follow to try and get people to come back, for us, it's really not about, I think, just get people in. It's well planned. One, it's around the environment, how we ensure that the workplace aligns to what we need to be achieving. So collaborative type spaces, gone are the days where you've got your own desk as before, and we're ensuring that we create those hubs, if I can call it that, where people are able to engage in those deeper type conversations in a smaller context, as well as, being able to accommodate large teams to ideate and drive agility within our organization. So human capital has really been playing a active role in ensuring that we as leaders are also empowered to be able to assist and support our teams. I hope, did I answer you, my brother?
Thank you very much. You did. Thank you very much. Excellently so. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Mangisa. There is a question there, and please you'll excuse me because the name does not appear. It's just say iPhone, and I'm so sorry. If you don't mind, just say, maybe just tell us who you are, because obviously we don't want to call people by iPhones. I would have loved to ask you to express yourself, but I can see that you are saying you are recovering from COVID-19, so your voice is not good, and we thank you for even attending the session. So the question is, I'd like to know, how do you influence decision makers to adapt to the new normal, where there is inflexibility and rigidity, almost refusing to move with the new ways of work? That's a question there, Dr. Mkhize, as I'm saying that, our colleague, if maybe you could just put your name on the chat room as well, so that we know where's the question coming from. Dr. Mkhize?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, and I hope you recover soon. So I think that becomes a little bit of a challenge when leadership is not aligned. Because what that does is it creates confusion for the teams that we lead. In cases, I think in our case, we were very clear in terms of us allowing each leader to be able to define, as I mentioned, it's going to be a different approach for different teams, even within the organization. As long as it does not create the confusion and disengagement for the teams. I always say, and usually for me, because I can, since I am in technology, and the adoption of newer technologies, newer ways of working is usually quite difficult. And I think the pandemic actually should have taught us a lesson on how important it is to be able to adapt quickly to changing circumstances. And as a result, there are tools, there are platforms, there are learnings and lessons that we can take in terms of ensuring that we move away from the inflexibility as well as the rigidity, because it no longer serves any organization or any team. So really, we shouldn't be waiting for another pandemic to be able to learn. We've learned, I think, well enough. And what's important, I think, it takes leadership and that constant communication and displaying on how good looks like. Sometimes being able to influence is not really saying, this is what you have to do, but it's showing how good looks like. And I guess also facts, numbers, examples of how things have actually worked for other organizations does change the narrative in some of what I would call leaders that don't want to move with the times. And I think in technology, as I say, we deal with that quite a lot. However, we are seeing quite a lot of people being able and I think willing to change if they understand what's in it for them. And if you're able to clarify the why, the inflexibility and the rigidity is no longer serving the organization, then it becomes a little bit easier conversation to have.
Thank you.
Did I answer you? I'm not sure whether it's a say or ma'am. Hopefully so, yeah.
Yeah, hopefully so, as we've requested that maybe if the colleague does in mind to just to write his or her name so that we know who we are dealing with, but thank you so much. I see another question in the chat room. Mr. Young, I'll ask you to express yourself. You are one of ours here. Obviously, it's a long question and comment, but we always learn a lot from you, sir, so that if you can just express yourself. Over to you, Mr. Young.
Good evening, Prof. Majola. Good evening to all of the regulars and the newcomers, but especially thank you to Dr. Philile for your absolutely insightful sharing.
Thank you.
You know, I work in transformation,
Nice.
and therefore this topic, I was drawn. I'm apologizing for coming slightly late, Mazwe. But you know, this is what I typed because I wanted it to be clear so that I'm not waffling. You know, consciousness, if we say it includes awareness, mindset, paradigm, assumption, truth, habits, beliefs, knowledge, attitude, skill, response, ability, behavior, competence, I assert that how we execute or be, think, say, do, is different in different dimensions, specifically in the spiritual dimension, the physical dimension, which dominated the first, second, and third industrial revolution, but now especially in the digital fourth industrial revolution that I see. The rules and the consciousness in each dimension are different, is my assertion. So my question is to you, and I'm happy to share my context after I've got your opinion. How can we assist people and organizations embrace this consciousness to enable their transformation?
So I think my perspective is you're touching on a very important aspect of which I think as leaders we sometimes overlook, and that is how consciousness actually builds the culture of the organization. And what we do, how we do it, why we do it as organizations all talks to who we are. So the fabric of the organization, and that organization is made out of individuals with all of those things that you have highlighted there. For me, let's call it the digital aspect thereof is an addition to that consciousness of the organization. So for instance, there are quite a lot of strategies that we have that will say digital first or mobile first. And how does that strategy add to who we are as an organization? And I guess, you know, as we also move into the newer way of working, how work gets done, by who, as well as why that work gets done is all part of, you know, that fabric in terms of who we are. So as I say, for me, you know, consciousness is basically that heartbeat of how one defines the culture of the organization and how we think about how we take the organization forward by the strategies that we put forward. I hope I have answered you. It's my perspective.
Thank you. That's informative. If I might share what we are learning, because Mazwe always brings me here to learn, and now I think I'm learning with you.
Yeah.
You know, how people conform are conditioned to culture.
Yes, correct.
Is in fact what drives communities and civilization.
Correct.
And I mentioned that as the stages of building civilization, because we're seeing that the roles and responsibilities are shifting now that the resources of the way we operate and run organizations are forcing new forms of relationship and new rules. So I call it the 5R model, based on the 5 C's model. And,
Yeah.
and that is fundamentally shifting, as you've so rightly identified, identity and purpose. Identity of individuals, identity of organizations, purpose of individuals and purpose of organizations. But here's the key thing that keeps coming out in the work we're doing. Unless we can very clearly enable the systemic phase change of the systems based on trust, hybrid, work at home, all of these things mean nothing, because the trust variable is proving itself to be the differentiator in creating this new consciousness and driving the relationships and roles and responsibilities, resources, relationships, and rules. And coming from an IT background, unless you can provide the resources with trust, unless we can create rules that foster trust and relationships that do that, hybrid is failing. But that's my insight. But I love listening to you. It was really valuable. Thank you for sharing with us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I think you're touching on a very important point around trust and how organizations that win are the ones that are also built on trust, even not only around the teams that work for us, but whether our customers actually trust, who we are and what we stand for. And everything that comes with that. So trust, very, very key. I mean, even if you even move it to technology, can I trust that if I give you my information, you're going to keep it secure? Something as simple as that. Can I trust that if I give you the resources to be able to work in a hybrid model, you would be able to do what's expected of you? So that, I think, is one of the key aspects that as leaders, we need to be thinking about, constantly thinking about how we build and show trust in what we do. Thank you.
Perfect. Wonderful. Wonderful. That's why we are here, to learn. Thank you so much, Brother Andre. Thanks, Doc. I see another question there from my brother, Dr. Sifuko Ramushaba. Dr. Sifuko, can you express yourself, my brother?
Evening, Prof, and evening to colleagues. I don't know why you do this, Prof. When a person writes a question, you want the person to verbally say it. Now that's victimization. So, but what it's those things that are so real that, when I was taught management and supervision, it was this control, what, and how do I control somebody from home? Somebody can work from 8 to 10 or to 12 and produce results. After 12, he buys Jameson and drinks. But the results are more. What do we do? Employee discipline at home. Because, the person does everything. He does more. You pass him, he's in a bottle store. What do you do? But the work is done perfectly. So we have to be result-driven, performance-driven, or we hire people to give us results, not to see the warm bodies in the office. So how do the school of thought, I know the 60s and 70s, I know those textbooks, just a manager must follow people. So what kind of training do we need? How do we reimagine the workplace beyond COVID-19? Because we have to, because some companies performed more without people at work than when they were at work. So what I'm trying to say is, how do we reimagine the workplace beyond COVID-19?
Yeah, I think for me, it's also a question of culture. Are we an organization, or rather leaders, that are driven by control, and control can be self-limiting as well, because you can control people, but you hardly get anything out of them? Or are you an organization that drives the culture of higher performance? And higher performance means results. You know, here is what is expected. This is what we need to deliver as the organization. This is your contribution as a team, your contribution as an individual. And if you're able to do that, provided you've got the necessary tools and access to everything that you would require to be able to do that, yeah, I think it just talks to culture. And yeah, for me, really, I'm not from the 60s or the 70s. So as a result, if I am not in the office and I'm still able to deliver, really, that is how I would prefer to be managed and led. And hence, you know, most of the teams are also being led that way. And I guess it takes learning again as leaders, and not being fixated on what we learned how many ever years ago. You know, the times have shifted. We now have better technologies. We now have better resources. We have improved way of leading, which has been proven that it works. And it's a case of us being able to adopt and adapt to some of those learnings. So yeah, luckily, as I said, in our organization, in many organizations that I've worked with, it has always been more around results. Even the mining, I mean, you would assume it's more control and command, but leaders do, you know, learn and improve in their way of working so that it's able to deliver the right results. And I'm sure Prof Majola, you can help with that particular organization in shifting, you know, from command and control to more, let's call it situational type leadership. Yeah.
No, it's true. It's so true. And it's very interesting as Dr. Sifuka is asking this question, because indeed it talks to really different cultures that you find in organizations in terms of their leadership styles. And I agree with you, Doc. Gone are those days when the days of baby boomers in terms of the control, command, authority. Those people really love authority. They wanted to, you know, to be led, to be managed. But with the nowadays, the generations Y and generation Z and that is totally different ball games. And actually, the more you put control and command over them, you're chasing them away. So it's more, as you're saying, and I like the way you're putting it, Doc. It's more about high performance. And if leadership, it's about influence. If leadership is about inspiration, it's about the impact. You can do that wherever a person is, you know. It doesn't have to be in front of you and you check. Have you done this? Have you finished? You know, that militant and that control type of leader. There are still organizations that are used that. Actually, not only organizations, but they must still be industries, because even when we teach leadership and when we teach different leadership styles and we're talking about these things of influencing, you will always say that there are those peculiar and unique industries that still need that command, control and command. For instance, if you take the fire, is it fire extinguishers, firefighters, the firefighters environment, that environment, the leadership style that is required there definitely is that militant, authoritative, because the environment they're working at is very dangerous. There is no time to debate. There is no time to discuss. There is no time for democracy. There's no time to consult. When the chief is saying that, put that pipe there because people inside are going to be hurt immediately. You cannot ask, you can't say, no, chief, I think it's better if we go that way. Immediately you do what you are told, you know. So in those industries, yes, that particular leadership style is still required, and others as well. This is just an example. But overall, mostly industries now, it's more really influence. People just want to it's more results and relationship oriented rather than only results oriented, because those managers and those leaders who are pushing for results at the expense of relationship are the one who are, yes, who are monsters. They want production, want results now. They don't care about relationships. But this is very, very interesting. Actually, as we are dealing with this thing, something in me, Dr. Mangisa, please do remind me. Dr. Sifuko is in one of our faculty members as well. Please do remind me that I think we really need to arrange a special leadership seminar dedicated to this topic, where we really have a very big seminar and they just talk about this thing, because I see that it's a very, very important topic to be dealt with. So I hope my colleagues will remind me so that we can arrange that seminar. I see a hand there. Mr. Young, over to you, my brother.
Yes, please invite me to that seminar, because I had a chat last week with an MBA roundtable with my American colleagues from all the business schools in that part of the world. And one thing that keeps coming up is, how do we prepare people to lead? How do we prepare MBAs specifically to be able to now be educated so that they might be effective in the world going forward? Because the current model is not working. As we can see, these guys are leading businesses, and look at where we are in the business world. We've got more exclusion and more unemployment than we had 50 years ago. But to your point, complexity is asking us to have different emergent orders and practices. You mentioned the one when we're in chaos. Command and control works. We have to use that type of style. But when we're dealing in highly complex environments, as I think Dr. Philile shared, all of a sudden, that command and control doesn't work. At the core of the relationship, as I'm having with you, Mazwe, we've met once or twice in our lives, but our connection is all digital. Trust is key. And beyond trust comes another word, commitment. Commitment. How am I committed to my identity and my purpose and that of the organization and the customers thereof? So I think what's coming out is that a whole rethink of everything is required. Everything. Conditioning, culture. Hey, we even need to consider changing the way we engage with customers, because digitally, as a customer, I'll give you an example. The other day, they pulled me off and gave me a 500 rand fine for not carrying my driver's license. So I showed him my driver's license on this phone, because I've got a copy. No, sir, we can't accept that. I said, you don't understand. I've got 2 cars. I left my physical driver's license in the other one. But in this car, because I don't have it, I've got my cell phone with this picture of my driver. No, you are paying 1,000 rand fine. I said, wow, hang on. I haven't broken the law. My driver's license is up to date. I went and I stood in the queue. I took a digital copy, but you don't want to accept my digital copy. Trust with that traffic officer. I now have to pay, in Cape Town, 1,000 rand because I didn't carry the card, but I've got a picture of the card here. But digital has changed. So that's a practical example of how we don't have trust in the system. The people don't trust each other. And in traffic control, we need command and control, but we also need somebody who can make sense of the new world. Sense, making sense, common sense. it's this thing that's age old, but I'll leave it there. And then hopefully that common sense variable I leave with you in asking Dr. Philile, how do we help people back to common sense, man? Just use what your mother gave you.
I hope there was a tablet for common sense. Yeah. I see a hand.
Yes, yeah. No, definitely. No, thanks, Mr. Young. Thank you very much. I've become very fascinated when you talk about complexity leadership or complexity, because that was my PhD. I did my PhD on complexity management, or complexity and systems thinking management. So those chaotic and whatever thing that you're talking about. And I was very glad because I did it in 2013. It was long before COVID came. So by the time COVID came, you're talking about volatility, unpredictability, uncertainty, and all those things. It's something that we did a long time ago. So thank you. But I see a hand there. I think it's Dr. Tuma Mangisa. And I see that we are losing a lot of people, probably because more in other areas, load shedding started at 7. Maybe after Dr. Mangisa, if there's no one who still want to engage Doc, we will allow Doc to respond and to give us her closing remarks. I just don't want us to lose more people. I can see it's a very interesting topic. That is why I'm really committing that we'll really have to get, or rather to organize a leadership seminar based on this topic. And then I hope Dr. Mkhize will be available to be one of the speakers in that seminar, because you started it and then you are the one who. Dr. Mangisa, over to you, my brother.
Yes, thank you very much, Prof. This is a comment and, or rather, an addition to some of the questions that were posed, to say how best can we prepare, the new emerging managers to be able to be effective leaders, and accommodate the hybrid, space or remote working thereof. There is a concept, and I'm obsessed to this concept, Prof. It's not for the first time that I'm speaking on it, which is emotional intelligence. And scholars, define it or explain it as, an ability, and I can imagine it working, during the hybrid, whether, from a leadership point of view, we leading the people, or, from an employee's point of view, that it's an ability, of anybody, to identify and recognize your emotions and that of others. Now, identifying and recognizing emotions, that of others, it can be of a client that you are unable to see, that you were able to see when everything was normal. So I am saying, if we can, consistently talk about emotional intelligence, your self-awareness, identify that which triggers, some emotions, whether negative or positive, so that these relationships that we are trying to build as human beings, whether in business or in communities or societies, those relationships, through emotional leadership, through us being emotionally intelligent as people, not only as leaders, I think it will take us far. Being able to put yourself in the shoes of the next person that you're talking to, the next person that you're leading. I think it will take us far, being able to manage such emotions, manage such triggers, so that you continue to arrive at what you want to achieve. That's my addition, Prof.
Powerful, Doc. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Very true.
Dr. Mkhize, your response and your closing remarks, and then after that I'll close the session. As I'm saying that it seems like really many of our people are struggling with load shedding. As we see what is happening. Over to you, my sister.
So thank you very, very much, Prof. Majola, as well as the conversation that we've had with our colleagues. And I think just to close, for us to be, as leaders, to be able to attract and retain great employees, we must be able to build very strong employee experience. That will require leadership. It requires us developing our organization, I would say, in 3 areas. One is how we create a space for people to thrive, how we use technology and some of the resources that we already have in moving our organizations forward. And I think what's also quite important is around the culture. And culture is built through leaders. Trust is one of the areas that I think came through in terms of our conversation today. So creating that very solid experience means, one, being able to change us as leaders, being able to encourage innovation, being able to empower our employees. And I think you mentioned, Prof. Majola, being inspiring and motivating. And in that way, we should then become leaders that create other leaders who will do the same. So I guess the question I'm leaving for everyone is, as a leader and as maybe a scholar, are you creating those practices that put employees in a path for them to leave your organization? Or are you creating practices that actually keep them engaged and excited to be able to be higher performers? And I think, with hybrid working, whatever model that we're going to be following, so please go forth and be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I thank you so much for the invite. Thanks, Prof.
Wow, thanks, my sister. Thank you so much. This was the most beneficial session, the most interesting session, ladies and gentlemen. As I said, that I commit to organize a special leadership seminar around this issue, because I feel it's very important, and many executives and leaders we really need to grapple and discuss this thing, because it's gonna be with us for I mean, as long as we exist, as they say, that the complexity will coexist with us. So it's important to find a way or ways of how to respond to them. So thank you so much. I'm so sorry to those colleagues who have just joined us. I see Dr. Sipe Potelo, I see Dr. Pet Mazibuko and others who have just joined us. Sorry, colleagues, I know that the load shedding is hitting differently from different areas. Others, they started with us, and others, they, so it's coming there in different areas. But other than that, we had a wonderful session as usual, and we've learned a lot as usual. The copy of the recording will be available to those who would like to have it. So please do contact our office, admin@worldwideleadership.co.za, and we'll gladly share the recording with you. Other than that, thank you so much. Thanks, my sister. Thanks, Dr. Mkhize, and thanks to everyone. Other people like me are suffering with flu, but we're here. I saw Professor Zide was sleeping on the couch. He did say that he was suffering from flu, obviously, but he did join us. And then the other colleagues who said he was recovering from COVID. So thank you so much. You can see how important this session is. Someone would say, no, I'll rather go there. I mean, if Professor Zita said, I'm so sick, but I'll follow in bed. So you can see that how important these sessions are. Ladies and gentlemen, let's do meet again next week, Wednesday, and let's just hope. I wonder if should I use the word pray, but let's just hope that this ESCOM thing really is resolved soonest, because you can see how, I mean, it's so affecting us in many ways, I know so many colleagues who were, sending messages and say, Prof, load shedding in my area starting exactly at 6. And obviously, it's not only for these sessions, but even in our other lives as well. So let's hope that there will be some solutions very soon. Otherwise, the country is heading for very dire situations. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you again next week, Wednesday. God bless you. And the session is adjourned now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Good evening to everybody.